Alright, so, if you pay attention to my Twitter, you'll know that I started and recently finished Gundam Seed. So yeah, we're just going to talk about my thoughts on it. I've also, as I'm recording this, I've also started watching the second season, Destiny, but we won't be talking about that here. So yeah, Gundam Seed. Was it good? Yeah, I actually quite enjoyed watching it. A couple points here and there where I was like, it's just kind of going, it's not really good, not really bad, but there were a lot of points, especially, you know, past probably the midway point, where it got really, really good. There were some earlier stage points that I also really enjoyed, but overall, yeah, definitely a really good watch, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, I have watched, Witch from Mercury, but, I don't know, that didn't really feel like Gundam, especially compared to, Seed. So I guess you can say this is my first real Gundam, but also not, because technically it's not from, like, whatever the main line is. I don't know. I'm probably never going to get into that. I might watch IBO, and maybe some other ones, maybe Wing, and maybe we'll see how things go from there if I end up falling down the rabbit hole. But, yeah, so let's just talk about, details and stuff. Obviously expect spoilers and stuff, but Gundam Seed came out in 2002. In fact, I haven't checked, but it might have come out before I was even fucking born. So spoilers shouldn't really be an issue. And if they are, why are you here? Yeah, so characters, let's talk about those. Kira, I mean, he's not exactly likable, but he's also not dislikable. He's just kind of there. He's a bit whiny at times, but he does grow into his own and become a much better character, especially after what happens with his fight, his proper major fight with Athron. Yes, Athron. Fucking hell. I don't like... It's weird saying them without the fucking accent. Because obviously I watched it in sub. But yeah. After his fight is Astron, where Strike gets, taken out. Aegis gets taken out. And Astron thinks he's killed Kira. Obviously he grows quite a bit from there. And that's where he's basically... He basically is a completely different character. To an extent after that point. He's still... even from the beginning he's not pro combat, he doesn't like fighting, he's only doing it to protect people. But then, by the end, it's what are we fighting? What are we actually fighting for? What are we actually fighting against? It's not each other. What is it that we are fighting against? With the whole thing that Lacus pushes, the couple that she says a couple of times. Lacus is a very interesting character. I guess we can transition into her. Now, maybe Athron after this. She's clearly very important to the story, but doesn't play much of a role until the later points. I do like her. She's very interesting. She makes a lot of statements. When she is on screen, obviously, everything she says is very important, carries a lot of weight. Not everything she says. She is a bit of an airhead sometimes. But, when she's being serious, and, if you... I'm stumbling over my words. I haven't really thought this through. I'm just going to go, if you couldn't tell. She's a very interesting and pretty deep character. Probably. What am I even fucking saying? Yeah, I actually quite like Lacus, and obviously she ends up with Kira at the end of things. It's very nice. Very wholesome. So, Athron Zala. He's probably, I don't know, I did definitely like Athron, more than Kira, definitely. He's got more of a defined personality to begin with, and obviously, he doesn't develop a huge amount by the end, but obviously he does develop to some amount, and it feels more natural than Kira's just kind of sudden shift in outlook. I mean, it makes sense in Kira's case, but it's a lot, again, sudden, whereas Athron's feels more over time, more gradual, and you can see the seeds of doubt being sown much earlier than with Kira, where he just changes after hanging out with Lacus in her mansion. That we don't really get to see a whole lot of details on. Anyway, but yeah, Athron, really cool. I really like him. Yeah, pretty good character. My favorite character, I guess we'll talk about next, Flay. Well, his favorite for like the first half, because she becomes basically irrelevant after that. Apparently people don't like her, and I'm very glad they don't, because that's the point of her character. She's meant to be, disliked. She's meant to be hateable, because she is an awful, scummy piece of shit, and that's exactly why she's fantastic, and I absolutely love it. I love, slimy, evil, piece of shit characters, I mentioned in a tweet that, I obviously really like Tower of God. I voice acted on my channel every fucking week. But Rachel in Tower of God is easily... Well, she's up there as one of my favorite characters in Tower of God. And she is, basically... like, she is similar to Flay in that she's, a scummy piece of shit, manipulative, self-serving individual. different reasons, different methods, different purposes, but, you know, the overlap is there. And so obviously, I really like Flay. I think she's great. Yeah. Really fun character, really fun. Obviously, she does become very irrelevant and doesn't really develop much at all, and obviously she dies at the end. I think there's a fitting end to her character, but yeah, she doesn't really change a lot. She doesn't really develop a lot. She's not the best character written-wise, but she's one of my favorites because of her role within the story. Who else is going to be important to talk about? Well, I guess Mula Flaga and Lecru. Rao Lecru, I believe, yes. Those two, they're interesting. They're also very relevant to the big twist at the end that Mu is... Well, Lecru is Mu's dad's clone, and that's why they can, like, detect each other, which is really interesting for some early stuff in Destiny, but again, we're not talking about that here, but I do have some very almost guaranteed to be correct speculations. But again, we're not talking about that here. If you've seen Destiny, you'll know what I want. I'm literally like 3 episodes in. I have met a character that is somehow definitely related, if not is one, you know what I mean. If you know, you know. But yeah, their dynamic is interesting. Obviously, you have Lecru, who is kind of a major villain. He is like the major villain within Seed. He incites, basically almost every major bad thing that happens. The destruction of the the plant, I think it is, that they're on at the beginning. I can't remember what it's called. Heliopolis. I think it was Heliopolis. Well, obviously, the original set of Gundams are. The fucking, I can't remember what the name of the weapon was called. The one that they fire and it blows up a bit of the moon. I'm going to talk about that weapon a little bit, because I don't feel like it has anywhere near as much, like, threat as they were giving it. Yes, a nuclear laser is, a gamma ray beam is a bit of a threat, is, kind of scary, but I don't think it's as scary as they were making it out to be. We'll get onto that. So Lecru is obviously a very inciting character. He causes a lot of the conflict to occur. And well, yeah, as I've just said, he's a very key player in the story. And then you have Mu, who I'm grouping together with, because obviously they're very heavily related story-wise, at least for the end, obviously being constantly fighting each other and having constantly fought each other. Mu, I don't really have too many thoughts on. He's a character that doesn't really change or develop too much. He's just himself for the whole story, which is kind of the point. He's supposed to be like a mentorish type character, especially to Kira, or at least tries to be, somewhat unsuccessfully, because Kira's a whiny bitch sometimes. But he's supposed to be someone that knows who he is, has been through stuff, has experienced life. And then obviously things kind of get upended a bit at the end, and then sacks himself off, possibly at the end, to save the Archangel from the laser that the Dominion, the other Archangel class, at the end fires. Other characters that I feel like are relevant to talk about. Obviously, the whole cast is really good. I do really like the characters. They're probably the biggest selling point of Seed, is its cast, in my opinion. Because the story, at the end of the day, is just a war story, and so the characters need to be the thing that sells it. Because a war story without characters is just baseless, nameless nobodies shooting at each other. And obviously, you're not going to get invested in that. So obviously, it's important. It's good that, I think, at least in my opinion, that the characters are the big selling point. As for the plot on the whole, it was alright. I definitely think it's, obviously it's not the greatest, best written thing in the world, but it's not bad at all. I do have some gripes, especially with some things, particular plot elements, MacGuffins and such. For example, the FIrst Gundam pilots that pilot, it's Raider, Calamity, and Forbidden. Those 3, yes, they set up stuff that is now relevant in Destiny again. But again, we're not here to talk about that. So if you ignore Destiny, these 3 exist for no purpose other than to just be pains in the ass. They have no character other than, I'm McScreamy Man, I'm slightly less screamy but angry man, and I'm angsty guy with hair covering eye. Right, that's their personalities. And their Gundams are cool. You've got the one that can just become a bird, kind of. Again, a bit relevant to Destiny. There's a 3 set of Earth pilots that have 3 Gundams, and then one of them can transform. Again, completely irrelevant. we're not talking about Destiny, but Destiny is following basically the same setup as Seed. Anyway. Obviously, then we end up with, you know, the nuclear Gundams, the end jammer with the end jammer cannons, which are really cool. I'm actually going to be talking about the end stuff because it's stuff I remember more clearly. The beginning is kind of really set-up-y. There's obviously some really good stuff in the early stages, like especially the desert segment. That's really good. That has a lot of good development and also fleshes out Kagari, who we're introduced to right at the beginning. Obviously, we don't know that's her name, but she's introduced right at the beginning. She gets fleshed out there, and we find out who she really is. We also get some good developments with Kira, and, you know, that's where things start to show that he's like, what the fuck is the point in all of this? Because obviously we have that general, I can't remember his name, the Desert Tiger, I know that's his title, kind of parroting stuff that Lax has said, but obviously Kira hasn't heard her say that. But, you know, saying the similar things that Lax has, which kind of then very heavily foreshadow, well, I guess it does in hindsight foreshadow him and Lacus working together and being, you know, in cahoots by the end, which is really cool. And I don't know how he survived his orange Baku fucking exploding, given that his girl, the girl that he's with, I assume his wife, dies in that explosion, but he doesn't. He just loses an arm and an eye. Whatever. But hey, is what it is. You know, we get, like I say, we get the nuclear-powered Gundams, Justice and Freedom. They're really fucking cool. I'm just gonna say this: the Gundams are sick. Okay, obviously, big mecha show. Of course, the robots are gonna be cool, and they are. Also, we have the other ones, the ones that Zaft uses with, what are those guys' names? We have Dirka, Toll, and Isaac. Yeah, that's what they are. And they pilot Buster, Blitz, and Duel, respectively. And obviously, Athran pilots Aegis, at least until where he blows it up and then gets Justice later on. But yeah, really cool. The robots are sick. The relevance in the stories also I really like. I do like they're actually intrinsic to the plot. They are the trigger for everything, the development of these original set of 4 Gundams that are on Heliopolis that are developed by Orb in cahoots with the Earth Force, even though Orb is supposed to be, you know, an independent neutral nation. So it sets up all the tensions and establishes, you know, the 3 main forces very early on. I do really like the structuring of the story. And obviously, you know, the big twist that the Earth Force are also the bad guys isn't really surprising because, well, it's a war story. There are no good guys. So you should have seen that coming. But yeah, I really enjoyed Gundam Seed. If you want to know my thoughts on particular points, comment, and I'll, you know, talk about it a bit more there. This is meant to be just like an overview of did I enjoy it or not, and what things I enjoyed, and some things that I kind of didn't, like I said, with those 3 Earth pilots, whose names I don't even fucking know. But yeah, if you want to know my thoughts on particular points throughout the story in more detail, comment. Also, while you're down there, maybe leave a like, sub, notification bell, because I'll definitely be doing another one of these where I talk about Destiny. And if I do actually get into Gundam, I'll probably do more of these, you know, like IOB and any other Gundam series that I also end up watching, and just anime in general that I end up watching, and maybe not even anime, webtoons, etc., etc. The stuff I just, whatever I indulge in, I'll make content on. That's kind of the point for these Wednesday discussion type videos. If I want to talk about something, I will. So yeah, if you like the idea of that, and also go check out my other content, I'd really appreciate it because it really helps me out. And with that out of the way, I've been Animosity, you've been you, and I hope to catch you all next time for another video. Ta-ta! For now.